Right, there we go. So we said that there are great lanes in Torah, lanes in Torah that have a tremendous amount of perception, understanding in them, which require a great amount of wealth to be able to, to acquire that. And that's the reason why everybody, the entire Torah went through Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rebbe, Ravashi, Ravina, the prophets. They were all very, very wealthy. And we said that the way to get to that wealth, also we're not talking about just the numbers in a person's bank account. We're talking about Ashiras Likutey, that because if wealth, does not come, the Kedusha, what's the point? You can have all the money in the world. What are you going to do with that? You need a certain amount of money to live. And if you're into it, some more money to be comfortable. And that's it. Everything else beyond that doesn't make any difference. It's in Yanis. But when the money is B'Kedusha, when the wealth comes through the Kedusha, it enables the owner of that wealth to acquire great insight into Torah mysteries. This entire process, by the way, is called the rectification of Atik, which is what Shimon Bar Yochai was doing. So you can sort of say, okay, Shimon Bar Yochai, what on earth am I doing with Tikkun Atik? I don't even know what Atik is, let alone how to fix it. Rabbeinu tells us that you add a little Kedusha every single day. The next day, you start from where you ended the day before. And you start again. Now, a person may look at himself and say, I'm not moving anywhere. In fact, I'm so slow, I'm actually moving backwards. The point is that wanting and trying is the move. It's not about visible or invisible success. It's about the effort and the will and the resolution that you have to get into it and to do it. So the way to get, to widen a person's days, in addition, in Kedusha editions on a daily basis, is achieved through Yira. Everybody wants to be a Shemai, right? Everybody wants to be a Shemai. It says that, and we explained that the thing is that Yira is Yozochi Torichas Yomim, Chinas Zoken, which is Tikkun Atik. And the reason Yira works for that, it's effective for that, is because Yira saves a person from the opposite of Ashiras, which is poverty. And we went into a very deep explanation that whereas wealth is something that is the result of Arichas Neshima, lengthening of Neshima, and And poverty comes from the stoppage of neshima. Stoppage is synonymous with being hooked on the beauty of women. That's the thing that we got through a whole explanation as to why this has to do with that. What the stoppage the neshima has to do with that, and the lengthening of the neshima has to do with wealth. So this is what we spoke about last week. And he says, and that's where, and we explained that, this is Yesh B'Havla Goyim, Mavshimim, and so forth. And here, V'zeh B'chinas V'kar Ruach Ish Tvuna. And a person, with Kar Ruach, the Kar Ruach Ish Tvuna, anybody that his Ruach Peh is very yokar, it's very, that he watches, this is the pshat of the pasuk, the Kar Ruach Ish Tvuna, a person who values the words that come out of his mouth, is making sure not to say things that he should not say, and say the things that he should say. That person is Ish Tvuna. He is a man of sense, of intelligence. But here, before we explain that the bringing about of Arichas HaNeshama is through kerach, through the cold air, is the air that the person brings into his lungs, as we said. Ruach HaKarsha Neshima, that's the cold air of the breathing, through which you come to this is Beinunus, you come to this insight, which comes through the wealth, because it is through the lengthening of the neshima, the person is zercha to wealth, and through the wealth, by the wealth, you are zercha to this insight, this great insight in Torah. So it says through the kar ruach, the arichas neshama, the lengthening of the neshama, you're zercha to ish tvuna, you're zercha to this is Beinunus, this insight. V'zeh b'chinas v'nishmas shalei tavinem. Because, and it says the kivyochol, the neshama v'kodesh baruch hu, b'chinas shin daled yud, will bring about tvuna, bring about comprehension. Ki ikar is Beinunus, because the main insight, main understanding, it comes through that lengthening of the neshima, which is karuach. So the etz of arichas neshama brings about koyach for his beinunus. By the way, interestingly enough, do you know that people forget to breathe? Yeah. People holding their breath. The air is necessary, to bring a person's seichel. And people actually, they don't realize, but they stop breathing. So, there's a lot of different disciplines are based on breathing. Proper breathing, how you bring air and so on and so forth and so on. Because that's the thing that brings the tvuna. The main rectification of a person's seichel is through the breathing. The main thing is that the mind needs to be, proper, the way, fixed and perfect. So a person will be able to, to inspect the chachma and understand it. So, okay, so what is the thing that makes the seichel proper? The seichel healthy? And it says, that comes through the oils. of the body. The seichel of a person is like a burning candle. They used to have candles, with oil. So the seichel is like a burning candle. The way that it burns, the way a candle burns, is by the oils that are being pulled through the wick, and then the fire can burn. The body has its own oils, its own whatever the name is, that the body needs to have. The body needs to have an equilibrium, a certain balance of those natural liquids, oils. And when there's no oils in the body, and the mind cannot burn. In other words, the mind cannot be lit and have these veinos, have the insight to understand. This is where people go crazy. And there is no greater wastage of the shmonim than Pagam Bris. And the Pagam Bris is both physical and obviously spiritual. Now, Mishagoyim doesn't necessarily just means people that are going in the street, without clothing, speaking to themselves. But we're also talking about people who sit in the highest courts of Israel and think that the way they're going to save Am Yisrael is by taking them away from Yiddishkeit. They are big Mishagoyim. They're the biggest Mishagoyim because everybody thinks they're normal. What this does, this spoils the moach. He doesn't have the oils, to feed the flame of his mind. And all the wetness in the oils in the body, they are being preserved by the breathing. They are neshima. If it wasn't for, the wings of the lung, the lung looks like it has like 5 wings, lobes. It's called conferea, and Hebrew is called lobes. That they beat on the heart. The heart is the pump that pumps everything, all the blood around the body. It makes everything work. Now, the heart, gets hot from the work. It gets hot, and the lung, which is around the heart, the cold air comes from the outside, and it cools down the heart. It's like a radiator. The lungs are like the radiator of the heart. The heart is the engine, and the lungs are the radiator. So if it wasn't conferea that blow in the heart, have the liba okim kol, the heart would have basically fire up the entire body. The body would have the heart would burn up the body. So see the ruach of the breathing that comes into the lung, it brings about coolness into the body and sustains the body. So you see the preservation of the oils and the juices in the body, enzymes in the body, is through the neshimas, through the breathing. The lung receives ruach kaveh b'chutz. The lung receives cold air from the outside, in order to cool down the heart. That enables the seichel to be able, to be sustained, burning in the outlook. Zeh b'china, what it says, Ner Hashem nishmas Adam. The pasuk says in Mishlei, the candle of Hashem is the neshama of a person. What it comes to tell you is she'ikar kiyuv v'tikon Ner Hashem. The main preservation of the Ner Hashem was seichel. That's the mind of a person. Well, that this is achieved through the breathing. Now, as we said before, a person that covets the beauty of women is receiving a bechina of hefsek neshima, of the stoppage of the neshima, not just physically but spiritually. He's like starving his brain, as it were. So there's a Magillanius, that's the thing that brings him to poverty. But somebody that has Yira, and he is making sure to stay away, to be careful from the beauty of women, he receives the Bechina of Arichas Neshima, of the lengthening of the Neshima. This is the thing that enables a person to achieve wealth. So see that the Yira has the koyach to bring a person to Ashirs, and that's why through Yira you get what we said before, Arichas Yamim. Through Arichas Yamim, in other words, lengthening, widening your days, infusing your days with more Kedusha, you zechet Ashirs. This Ashirs, you zechet to this power of insight into the Torah. The main kiyum seichel, the main existence of the seichel is being assured through the breathing. It is found through the Yira. A person zechet Arichas Yamim. That brings Ashiras. That's the thing that brings about the Hizboninus, this insight. So, to sum it up, we said that there are lanes of Torah that enable the person to have a great insight into Torah. It's only possible to get that through wealth. And the way to get to this wealth is by widening your days, by infusing your days, making your days bigger, longer, and richer with Kedusha. That's Arichas Yamim. That's called Zoken. That's called old. You know, the one that has many days. And that it is through this Arichas Yamim, this Zoken, that you receive into it the Ashiras that you need to have this insight. And to get this Arichas Yamim, as we said before, you get through the Yira. Okay? Now, up to now, it's pretty simple. It's a principle. If you're Shemai, you have, if you're Shemai, you can add Kedusha. You can add Kedusha, you'll get this wealth, you'll be able to have this insight. Okay? There's only one teensy-weensy little problem. How do you get to your Shemai? So this is what Rabbeinu is going to explain to us now. The perfection of the Yira is through 3 lines. Like you have Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, right? Chochmah, Bina, Das. So these are the 3 lines: the right, the left, and the middle. You say Shlem Sayiro, Shalosh Kavim, Bivchinas, Vore Shamayim, the fear of Hashem. Moira Rabcha, and the awe and fear that the person has from his Rebbe. Moira Avem, and the awe that the person has and the fear that the person has from his mother and father. These are the 3 kinds of Yira. Then we will see that means that a person needs to pull down the Yira in 3 different phases of his life, as you'll see. When there is the sage of the generation, when he's to, really good students, the Bonim Agunim, really good children, like Shimon Bar Yochai had with Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Elazar was his son, Rabbi Abba was his talmid. Then the year is perfect. The year of the sage and the Rav in the generation, that is the perfection of Moira Shamayim. The year of the Rav is connected to Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's called Year Moira Shamayim. The Talmidim, Yesh Lehem Yir Sarav, they have the awe and fear from the Rav. The Pchinas Moira Rabcho, the awe and fear, and then the intimidation of your Rav. The Bonim and the children, they have Moira Avahem. They're intimidated by their parents. Shaladei Shlosh Yiras Elu, through these three different kinds of Yiras, Yira B'Shleimus. That is the completion, the perfection of the Yira. And the Yira of each one of those three also needs to be consisted, and needs to be consisted from three. Each one is divided into three. We will explain what does it mean. 3 years, each one is also divided into three. So altogether you have 9, right? 3, 3, and 3. We'll explain that. The Haim, meaning now, Moira Shalarav, the awe, the fear from the Rav, the fear of the Rav, Shomer Shamayim, that's the year that the Rav has. That the Rav has Yir Shamayim. Now, the year that the Rav has from Kadosh Baruch Hu, that's a very, very special year. Right? That's a year where a person is given to feeling the awesomeness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is the Gemara of the Rav. It needs to be constructed of 3 parts. Plus motion, Chochma, Bina, V'das. The year of the Rav has to go through these 3 stages of Chochma, Bina, V'das. Hikar Yerosa Shel Rav, the main year of the Rav, all days Beinunus Gdula Sabaris Baruch. The Rav is looking into the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That he is seeking, investigating in his seichel. Nimtza Shirosa al Dei HaSeichel. So you see, the year of the Rav is something which is done through the seichel. That's why it needs to be the year will be full from the 3 motion that is in the seichel of a person: the chochmasoi, the binosoi, the daitoi, his chochma and his deep bin and his das. They'll all be filled from Yiras Hashem. Now, what that means is we know that Kadosh Baruch Hu is great. We take a look at the world, we can see that. We believe the mitzvahs that we do are very exalted, very important, but we're not really that gung-ho about it, are we? Not really fired up by that. So where did it all go wrong? What was the problem? The answer is, it's like when somebody asks you a riddle. No, I don't know. Well, that you don't know. That's why it's a riddle. But so what do you have to do? Well, you have to, the riddle is with the chokhmah, you know there's an answer, otherwise it wouldn't be a riddle. So what are you using? Your intelligence, you're using your bina, right? So what do? You start looking from this side to that side. You're turning over like this, you're turning over like that. And like you're knocking at the door of this conundrum. What? How does this work? What's the story behind this? And suddenly you see like the end of the string. There's a possibility maybe that's the way where the answer is. And you start investigating and you start opening it up. And as you open it up, suddenly it opens up more and more and more. And usually the way you do it is with, you compare things to one another. Maybe it is this, maybe it is that, maybe that's the answer, maybe that's the answer. And suddenly you find a very beginning of an idea, and you start pulling on the string and you unravel the whole, suddenly the whole thing comes into your mind. So, now I get it. Once you get it, now it goes into your memory. And now you know it. These are the three stages of Chokhmah, Bina, Das. Chokhmah is an akuda. It's just a point, just a dot. It is totally fisted. It's totally undifferentiated. You know that the Kadosh Baruch Hu is great. You know that the mitzvahs are the Ratzon HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which means they're totally awesome. But it doesn't shine. Why doesn't it shine? Because it's just an akuda. It's like a riddle. So what do you need to do? You need to think about this. You need to investigate this. You need to think about it in your mind. You compare things. You're thinking about this, about this, and you're back and forth. And suddenly, when you open it up, suddenly you are endowed with a vision. Whereas you go like, wow, that's a very awesome thing. It's like when people take a look at all kinds of discoveries and things through a microscope and what you didn't know that was awesome before. No, but the point is that when you start going into it, you start, looking into it, you get a whole different kind of insight into it, and suddenly it opens up in all its glory. The Yiras Hashem, Baruch Hashem, those that have Yiras Shamayim, which is Yiras Ha'inish. My age, any age, my age, it's not smart to start up with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's not the right thing to do. That's a wrong move. That's a bad decision in any age. So we know that, more or less. But the point is, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai said that there are three levels of Yira. He says the lowest one is the person, is doing what Kadosh Baruch Hu wants him or not doing what Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want him to do. Because he doesn't want Kadosh Baruch Hu to hurt him physically or his family or whatever it is. That's the lowest year. Above that, there's a higher year where a person is afraid what Hakadosh Baruch Hu is going to do to me, on the other side. It ain't going to be funny. Maybe a little bit funny for somebody, but not for me. No? So that's a higher level of year. It's not year in Oil Mazez, but Rav Shimon says in the Zohar that that's not the highest year. That's still a low year. A higher year is that you are in awe because the Hakadosh Baruch Hu is the master of the universe and controls everything, runs everything, and everything is in his hands. Okay, so we know about it. But it doesn't make us feel, Yisraelis, right? The way that we get Yisraelis to feel it is by thinking about it, by paying attention to it, by making it my business.
Which means that you want to do that.
Yes.
Hmm.
Making it my business to find out, to look at the greatness of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Let's just take it for granted. But to actually work on it. Any which way you want. Obviously, you need to ask Hakadosh Baruch Hu for that. But then, you take a little time, put on film, you sit down, before you put it on film, after you put it in your film, you're thinking, I'm wearing the film. The film is the kesser of Chochmah Elah and Achiname. When you start opening Likutey Halachos, then all of a sudden you get tremendous amount of the opening of flowering of the content sounding. It goes like, wow, I'm sitting with the crown of Hakadosh Baruch Hu on my head. And there could be two people sitting one next to one another, both saying exactly the same words. One person is parroting the words. The other person is practically awestruck to the point he can't even talk. It takes work. So here, we've been talking about this Indian, that the person is to be, dogged, resolute, not to fall and break from anything, and to keep on keeping on, and so forth and so on. Yeah, body. But nevertheless, there is this higher avodah, which is Moira Harav, which is Moira Shamayim, which is an avodah for sich. It's an avodah all its own. It's an avodah that a person needs to do in order to start having some kind of shaykhus or feeling like, whoa, So many Teres in Likutey Moharan, the Rabbeinu attacks it from this angle, from that angle, this derech, this way. Each one brings you to a different kind of a result. But ultimately, the whole thing means that you need to take this inyan, that that the Kadosh Baruch Hu is awesome and is great, but right now it's just a nekuda. How comes you know about it? It's written down in some sfarim, but it seems like it doesn't have anything to do with my life. Where the Nakud is supposed to be, that it's like a riddle. It's like a kasha in the Gemara. You have to start thinking about it. Okay, but it's like, where did I look? Like I already have the answer. But so it's not the answer. It's not that I don't know what the answer. I know because Baruch was great and he made everything and he's chai everything. But so it's more like, these wooden cubes, these puzzles that you have no idea how to take them apart. And you have no idea how to put them together then. It's like this kind of puzzle. It's like a cube. It's supposed to be a cube. It's supposed to end up as a cube. And so how, what do you do? What do you do? You press here, you try, doing this, you find doing that. And if you play around with it long enough, suddenly you see that something gives. That thing, that puzzle, you're supposed to apply the same kind of principle to the year of Murder Shemayim, being in awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the point that, how can I do this in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? I'm not even talking about an Avera. If your Rav were to come to your house, there are a lot of different things, that you do in your own home that you wouldn't do if your Rabbi is there. I'm not talking about it, but simply, it's like scratching your belly or whatever. It's so, what do you want in my house? Crying out, what do you expect?
Picking your nose.
Picking my nose. What can you do? I'm gonna pick your nose. But when you're in front of a very great person, you behave differently. Sometimes you're afraid that he's going to clobber you over the head. That's called Mora Shemayim. But the thing is that you need to bring it in. From a nakuda, you need to open it up. How you open it up? You ask Kadosh Baruch Hu for it. You think about it. You look into it. You read Sfarim that talk about it. Sefer Rabbeinu, Likutey Moharan, Chabad, if you're into this, whatever, and you look at it and you get this amazing hispalus, amazement. And it opens. And then once it's open, then it gets to the das. What the Rebbe said, as we'll see later on, it's going to be Adat Hayom, and you should know today, B'Hashemot Levavecha, and you shall return it into your heart. That's the Yiras Hashem is done through Adat Hayom Shemot Levavecha. Now, the das we're talking about is not philosophy. It's not science. It's not philosophy. It's not science. The das we're talking about is connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You simply got to knock. Excuse me for using that. These trite words, but you got to knock on heaven's door. You got to do it. That's it. Keep on knocking on heaven's door. Keep on knocking on Hashem's door and says, I want to see you. I want to see you. I need to see you. Because I'm going in this world blind as a bat.
That's what Rabbeinu said. The David Melech said, and now I know how great God is. And he raises the question about how is that? How is that possible? In Seichel Sudan.
He said that this is a very fleeting kind of perception.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell yourself, yesterday you were like, wow, I can't believe it. I'm freaking out. This is unbelievable. The next day you go, so it's a big deal. Kind of thing. So it's like, But nevertheless, it's an endless thing. And this is called Mora Shemayim. Mora Shemayim is 1/3 of the year. That's the Kava Emtza. That's the middle line. And it is made of Chochmah B'Yina Das. You achieve this kind of yira by wanting to see it. By wanting to see, you will see that B'ezrat Hashem, the other 2 years, which we're going to speak in B'ezrat Hashem next week, are more a matter of application. you apply your Shema, you apply a certain discipline into various areas of your life. This is the one area that you simply you need to knock your head against the walls of your heart. And beg HaKadosh Baruch Hu to open up the door for you until you can see it. Zat Hashem, we will meet on Motzei Shabbos, Sichas Arad, and Sipur Tzadikim. We learn Sipur Baal Shem Tov. We learn Sipur Tzadikim. We learn Sipur Rizal. Some good stuff. So everybody's invited. And those who haven't been there for a long time should take it as a shtoch and calling everybody. Call them a good Shabbos.
Who is that shit?